Donald Trump does it again. He disrespects black people as he tries to win their vote. But how does he try to win it? By giving them milkshakes and telling them a bunch of lies. Hang with me. I'll explain what I mean. Hello, I am attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. And each and every week, we bring you at least one legal analysis of some trending story regarding politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower you with the information you need to defy an unjust legal system and to nullify systemic racism. If that interests you, and certainly it should, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and click the bell. We appreciate all of your support. Thank you very, very, very much. That comes from both me and Chloe. Thank you. Also, please make your way over to our website at LLJP.org. That stands for the Lazarus Law and Justice Project. And please also make sure to go over to Amazon and get a copy of my book, Education and Justice, especially if you have a young African-American male or female in public school. This book will empower you to be his or her strongest, most potent advocate. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, let's get into this. Wow, there is no bottom to this Trump disrespect black people phenomena. He just continues to do that. He just says all sorts of ridiculous things, lies. He twists the facts. I remember when he went down to Puerto Rico after this really bad hurricane, and he's throwing out paper towels, packages of paper towels. Well, this time it's milkshakes, right? So he's ordering milkshakes, and he's giving milkshakes to black folks and telling them a bunch of lies, trying to get their vote. It's just amazing, to be honest with you. As the title here says, Trump offers blacks milkshakes and lies for their vote. That's not hyperbole. It is true. You saw it for yourself. If you haven't seen it, go check out that video. It turns my stomach, quite frankly. So we're going to talk about some of the highlights of his visit to this Atlanta Chick-fil-A. And I want to make some observations before we get into those highlights. First, the location and the fast food chain matter. The location is in a very condensed African-American community. It was a lot of black folks. I don't think that was happenstance. That was planned out. Trump had earlier been to a fundraiser, and it's safe to assume that the owner of Chick-fil-A was probably at that fundraiser and may have even suggested that Trump go to this particular store. And so it matters, the location of this store, the percentage of black folks at the store, and the store itself, because the owner of Chick-fil-A is a huge Trump supporter and a white Christian nationalist. And as I already said, Trump went to a store that he obviously knew was filled with black employees. It is safe to assume, again, that the owner of this store told him where to go and may have even told the employees that Trump was coming by. So put on your best behavior, your best face. I don't know that to be true, but it's a safe assumption. So those employees likely felt constrained to give a good show for the camera and for their job, right? A lot of these employees were young, right? They need their jobs. And so if the boss tells you that the former president is coming by the store and he wants the store to be seen, in a positive way, then that's going to certainly put some constraints and some pressure on those employees, right? I mean, that's just a real safe assumption. So the location and the store itself matters. The fact that it was filled with nearly what appeared to be all black employees matter. The possibility that those employees felt the need to put on a good show, again, is a great assumption. Now, let's talk about some of the highlights, some of the things that I saw in this, I don't know what you would call it, this impromptu visit. I don't believe it was impromptu at all. That's the way the media is spinning it. I believe it was definitely planned out. And it really turned my stomach as I listened to him and as I saw those African-American people there, some black conservatives who were putting on this good minstrel show, essentially is what I would call it. Why do I feel so strongly about it? Because I know that Trump is a white supremacist. I know that the people that he intends to bring into the White House and into his administration and into the governmental agencies and state houses and Congress, I know they're all white supremacists. And they have one thing in mind, and that is to preserve and to protect white supremacy. I mean, I know that. I know that. I got sense enough to know that. I am an educated person. I am an attorney, a civil rights attorney. So this is my space. I know what they're doing. I know what they're intending to do. And it is the reason why I am on YouTube in the first place, so that I can warn my people what is happening, what they plan to happen, and what will happen if we stand around and be foolish. Like, for example, I hear people talking about what Biden has done or not done for black people. And it seems like those people don't understand that it's Congress who controls the purse strings, pursuant to the United States Constitution. Congress is the one who spends the money. What the president does is sign into law or not the bills that Congress pass and the funding that Congress approves. And you can just tell when people say Biden hasn't done this, Biden hasn't done that. Conversely, Trump did this and Trump did that. Neither one of them can do no more than what Congress puts on their desk. Now, they can do executive orders, but those executive orders not only limits what the president can do, but also, especially on domestic policies, but also those executive orders can be easily struck down by the United States Supreme Court. Hey everyone, I am attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. Recently, I took a look at our analytics and I noticed something shocking. Many of you watch our videos and I believe you enjoy them, but you haven't subscribed yet. What are you waiting for? Again, I was shocked because I know our content is empowering and informative. Plus, our 2024 goal is to have 150,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Please help us by hitting that subscribe button, especially you young folks. We particularly want to increase our number of young subscribers. Thanks for all your continued support. We appreciate it very much. So a president has a whole lot more power when he signs into law bills that have been enacted by Congress. His or her executive orders don't have the same protection in front of SCOTUS that the other bills have. All right. So, I mean, that's just a short civics lesson. And I can tell a lot of people just don't know that. And I thought it was my responsibility to mention it. So I mention again my education because there are a lot of things that I know about the government because I am working in the area of civil rights. Okay, so he's trying to buy votes literally with milkshakes. I mean, you may say, wait a minute, what? What are you talking about? Well, there's a long history of white politicians buying black votes. Read Mary Frances Berry's book entitled $5 in a Pork Chop Sandwich. Plus, also keep in mind, you know, one of the things that black folks love to talk about is the money, the COVID money that they received under the Trump administration. Well, first of all, again, keep in mind, Congress approved that money, okay? It wasn't Trump. Trump signed it into law, and he did so for political reasons. And I know that conservatives love to say that it is because of welfare that black folks are so loyal to the Democratic Party. Well, that is so offensive for those blacks who are Democrats. I'm not a Democrat, so I don't, that doesn't get me riled up, but it's false. I know it's false. And I'm speaking on behalf of black Democrats that they're not supporting the Democratic Party because of welfare. There are more whites on welfare than there are blacks. And the majority of blacks are hardworking people who are not on welfare. And let's talk about all the corporate welfare that Republicans love to give their rich donors in the form of $2 trillion worth of tax cuts that benefited. Trump admitted that his tax cut benefited rich people. Okay? So if we're going to talk about welfare, Mr. and Mrs. Conservative, whether white or black, make sure we talk about corporate welfare as well, and the fact that most blacks are not on welfare. So he also asked if they were making a lot of money. He asked those young Chick-fil-A black employees whether they were making lots of money. Now, I don't know what they make. I don't know how much they make per hour. I don't know Chick-fil-A's financial packages to its employees. But I know there were some things that Trump did not mention. For example, he did not tell them that he opposed increasing minimum wage. You didn't hear that. So I don't know if they make minimum wage. I don't know if they're on salary. I have no idea. But most fast food employees make minimum wage unless they're in management, maybe a supervisor. I've worked in a fast food restaurant back in my college days and so forth. We made minimum wage. So for those workers out there who make minimum wage, Trump was not in favor of raising minimum wage. Here's how I know. In a Biden-Trump and their final debate leading up to the 2020 presidential race, here's how both of these two men debated raising minimum wage. Biden said he still supported the implementation of a $15 federal minimum wage, even as many small businesses are struggling during the pandemic. The current federal minimum wage is $7.25. Trump said the issue should be decided by the states. Quote, this is Trump talking, referring to Biden. Quote, Biden, said, we have to help our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping, close quote. Trump said of Biden, quote, I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different from New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different, close quote. Biden came back and said in that debate, no one should work one job, be below poverty, he said. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders we all clap for as they come down the street because they're allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level, close quote. So he did not tell them, Trump did not tell those employees when he asked them were they making a lot of money. And by the way, I consider that to be somewhat of a jest, right? Kind of an insult. He knows the money they probably make. And why would he ask them, you're making a lot of money? He knows they're not making a lot of money, first and foremost. He knows that. Why ask them such a question? But he also knew that his administration, and the GOP opposes raising the minimum wage to $15. All right? So he didn't tell them that. He says he'll not let them rig this election. He's talking to some of the folks that he was talking to. A lot of them were African American. But he fails to tell them a few things about the last election that we all know. First, he went into a court down in Georgia and he asked a judge to toss out millions of black votes. He didn't tell them that. He tried to get black votes in heavily populated black counties. He tried to get their votes tossed out. Did he tell them that? No. He approved and supported Georgia's restrictive voter suppression law that impacts black folks disproportionately. That is, you could say, targeted toward black folks. He didn't tell them that when he talked about rigging the election. And he certainly didn't tell them that he tried to rig the election himself by asking the Georgia Secretary of State's office to fine him 11,000 votes. And that was not just the Georgia Secretary of State's office. He did that to the actual Georgia Secretary of State at that time. So he didn't tell them that when he talked about not allowing the Democrats to rig the election. So he's always going to lie or not tell you the whole story, which is basically a lie. And the reason why I feel like it's all disrespectful is because he feels that he can tell black Americans anything. That's the low opinion that Trump has of black people. Just say anything to them. It doesn't matter. Most of them don't read. They don't have education. These are the assumptions and the prejudices they have toward black folks. So they just say anything, knowing that blacks will probably believe it. All right. Some more highlights. He asked them to vote for one of his former aides. He asked them to vote for one of his former aides. In fact, I think this man was his political director. And what's the problem with voting for that man? Because he's a younger version of Trump. He's a member of MAGA. He is a member of Project 2025, or at least he agrees with their goals, no question. He's also an election denier. He would not be in Trump's inner circle. He would not be getting Trump's endorsement if he wasn't. And he's also a white supremacist in that he wants to see white supremacy preserved and protected. Yet he asked those black people to vote for this man. I guess he figures if you vote for me, knowing I'm a white supremacist, then vote for this man. Again, it's just the low opinion that he has of African American people. And that's why it's so disrespectful. But it gets worse. He repeated his HBCU lies. Okay, just flat out lies. And let me show you that he lied. Okay, let's go over to my iPad. All right, here it is. And you see that the Biden-Harris administration has given HBCUs over $7 billion with the B. 7 billion with the B, not with an M. 7 billion, over $7 billion for HBCUs. The last I checked, billions are worth a whole lot more than the millions that Trump claims he gave HBCUs. And I don't believe that, quite frankly. I think he made that promise. I don't believe that money made it to HBCUs. Remember, Trump is a con man. He's a slickster. He knows how to say what he needs to say to get what he wants. And what does he want right now more than anything in this world? He wants to beat Joe Biden. And so he will say anything. He's desperate. He'll say anything to get elected. And the most, in his mind, gullible, vulnerable voters are blacks. he truly believes that. Now, I believe the opposite. I believe African American voters are very savvy and sophisticated. And I don't believe that African Americans are going to go out in November and put Trump back in the White House. I don't believe that's going to happen. And I'm going to do everything with what platform and resources that God has given me to see to it that it doesn't happen. Okay, let's go back. So yes, Trump repeated his HBCU lies. He also displayed some implicit bias. Let me tell you how that happened. So he assumed this random white guy was the boss of all these black people. He told this white guy, didn't know who he was. He said, hey, when the milkshakes run out, make sure they get more. And then he asked, are you the boss? And the guy said, no, I'm not the boss. And you can hear Trump saying, you look like the boss. I mean, really? He just assumed that this white man was the boss of all these black people just because he was a white man. That's implicit bias at a minimum. Just to look at that man and assume that he is the boss over all these black people. And the white dude told him, no, I'm not the boss. It's just something that I noticed. All right. Then Trump goes on to say that Biden has done nothing for black people. And this is where I want to take you over to the White House website and just show you a few things. Just some facts, right? Just some facts. That's all. Here's some facts. So under the Biden-Harris administration, they powered a historic economic recovery that created 2.6 million jobs for black workers and achieved both the lowest black unemployment rate on record. On record. We know Trump says he did. And maybe that was true when he was in office. But Biden produced more jobs in his administration, which also brought the unemployment rate down for black folks to the record low. This goes on to say, help black working families build wealth. Black wealth is up by 60% relative to pre-pandemic, the largest increase on record. Cut in half the number of black children living in poverty in 2021 through ARP's child tax credit expansion. This expansion provided breathing room to the families of over 9 million black children. Began reversing decades of infrastructure disinvestment, including with $4 billion to reconnect communities that were previously cut off from economic opportunities by building needed transportation infrastructure in undeserved communities, including black communities. Go to a predominantly black neighborhood in most cities, you will see how that neighborhood is cut off because of infrastructure. Typically don't have a bus line. Typically it doesn't have a rail line. Typically it doesn't have strong internet. Typically it doesn't have corporations. All those reasons are why corporations don't tend to go in black neighborhoods, for all these infrastructure reasons. So it's really, really important. All right. Achieved the fastest creation rate of black-owned businesses in more than 30 years, and more than doubled the share of black business owners from 2019 to 2022. Improved the Small Business Administration flagship loan programs to expand the availability of capital to undeserved communities. Since 2020, the number and dollar value of SBA-backed loans to black-owned businesses have more than doubled. See, Trump is lying, and we have to fact-check him. And there is no excuse for not fact-checking Donald Trump, or any politician for that matter, when you can go online and just pull up this data. You don't have to send a letter to some agency and wait for a package to come back. You don't have to go to DC or some place to get this information, it's right at your fingertips. So you should be able to immediately fact check him and know that he's lying to you. I talked about all of this stuff in a previous video, so I'm not going to spend too much time here on it. But just go to the White House website and you'll see all of this. There is this one last thing I want to show you that I showed you already, but let me show it to you again. Let me enlarge it. Delivered a historic investment of over $7 billion to support HBCUs. Now, I told you that already, but I wanted you to see it again because that is one of the biggest things black conservatives love to point to. Oh, he saved HBCUs. HBCUs would have been fine without Trump. And once again, whatever money the HBCUs got, now again, I have serious doubts that they really obtained or received any money under Trump. But if they did, it was the work of Congress. Trump just signed it into law. What else? So he said he had the best job numbers ever. That's a lie. We just saw that the Biden administration, and this was back in April 2023, unemployment fell to 4.3% for African-American workers. I believe it's now around between 5 and 6%. But the record low, that was during the Biden-Harris administration. He says he has done more for Atlanta than any other president. The man literally said that. It's amazing his ability to just lie to your face like that. And then he repeated this lie that really rubs me wrong. He says he's done more for the black community than any president, including Lincoln. And then he kind of walked that back. Well, maybe up to Lincoln. Oh my God. That, first of all, sounds so paternalistic. Why does he say that? Maybe he's talking about the lie about HBCUs, the fact that he signed into law something Congress did, by the way, a democratically controlled Congress, the First Step Act. He signed that into law. But that impacted only federal inmates. Most people imprisoned in our nation are in state prisons, which is over 2 million people. So we're very delighted for any help that even he did or helped do for inmates. But he's overstating what he did and what the First Step Act did and is doing. He's overstating it. Or maybe he's talking about COVID money. The fact that the government was sending out money during COVID. Where did most of that money go? White people. White people. And because you may have gotten a $1,400 check or $2,800 check or $3,600 check or $700 check, whatever, that's not enough to sell your soul to the political party that intends to come back in office and finish gutting rights that you have as an African American that protect you in many ways. It's not worth it. It isn't worth it. With the things they have planned, Project 2025, the folks who are standing around Trump can't wait to get back into office, like Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, people like that. Oh man, it will not be worth whatever check you received. Don't be bamboozled by these white supremacists. We're fighting the same war that our fathers fought, our forefathers fought. We're fighting the Confederate spirit. We're fighting white supremacists who want to take the country back to a time where black folks knew their place and stayed in their place, which was at the back of the bus, or to the colored folk side, or upstairs in movie theaters, or at the back of restaurants. Certainly not in corporate boardrooms or the elite universities of this country, or in the powerful seats of government. No. Not in medical schools, not in engineering schools, none of that. Because in their minds, that's all preserved for white men. Don't you participate in that because you received a check. And oh, by the way, as I close, there are some people who are definitely not planning on voting for Donald Trump. Those are people who served him in his first administration. People like Mike Pence, John Bolton, General John Kelly, Bill Barr, many other people who served him. Mick Mulvaney, who was one of his former chief of staffs, he went through 3 of them. They kept bailing out on him. So while some African Americans may plan to vote for him because they got a stimulus check, the folks who know him best are shouting from the rooftop, don't vote for Trump. Don't put him back in office. Our country would be in danger. So yes, once again, Trump disrespects the black community with milkshakes and lies. And that's only going to get worse the closer we get to November. Anyway, I'm attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers, and each and every week, this is what we do. We bring you one of these legal analysis to help you, to empower you, to defy this unjust legal system. There's 2 legal systems I talked about in my previous video, and to nullify systemic racism. Thank you for tuning in. Till the next time, peace.